What if the very thing standing between you and your miracle is not a lack of effort, a lack of talent, or a lack of opportunity? What if it is your inability to let go? For so many people, life becomes a constant struggle. They chase their dreams, force outcomes, worry about timelines, and spend countless hours wondering when their desires will finally appear. They believe that if they think about it enough, work hard enough, and hold on tightly enough, they can make it happen. But life often teaches a different lesson. Have you ever noticed that some of the greatest blessings seem to arrive when you stop chasing them? The answer you were desperately searching for suddenly appears. The opportunity you wanted arrives unexpectedly. The relationship you longed for develops naturally. The breakthrough comes at the very moment you stop forcing it. Why does this happen? Because there is a tremendous difference between desire and attachment. Desire inspires growth. Attachment creates resistance. Desire moves you forward. Attachment keeps your attention fixed on what is missing. Today we are going to explore a profound truth. Miracles often begin the moment you let go. Not because you stop caring, not because you abandon your dream, but because you release fear, pressure, and the constant need to control every detail. We will discover why holding on creates resistance, why letting go of the need is not the same as letting go of the desire, why trust is more powerful than constant checking, why fulfillment must come before results, and how allowing life to surprise you can open doors you never imagined. Because sometimes the greatest act of faith is not doing more, it is trusting more. And when you learn to trust, surrender, and remain at peace, you may discover that miracles have been moving toward you all along. So take a deep breath, open your heart, and allow yourself to consider a new possibility. The miracle you seek may not require more struggle. It may simply require that you let go. One of the greatest misconceptions people have about achieving their desires is the belief that the more they think about something, the faster it will arrive. They assume that constant focus, endless analysis, and emotional attachment demonstrate commitment. They believe that if they hold on tightly enough, worry deeply enough, and monitor every detail carefully enough, they can somehow force their dream into existence. Yet, more often than not, this approach creates the very resistance they are trying to overcome. Think about a time when you desperately wanted something. Perhaps it was a relationship, a financial breakthrough, a new opportunity, or a specific goal. In the beginning, the desire may have felt exciting and inspiring. But as time passed, you may have noticed yourself becoming anxious. You started checking for signs. You became concerned about when it would happen. You compared your situation to others. You worried about delays. Without realizing it, the desire transformed into pressure. This is where resistance begins. Resistance is not created by the desire itself. Desire is natural. Desire inspires growth, movement, and expansion. Resistance is created when fear becomes attached to the desire. It is born from thoughts such as, what if it never happens? What if I fail? What if I lose this opportunity? These thoughts shift your attention away from possibility and toward lack. Instead of focusing on what you want, you begin focusing on the absence of it. Imagine holding a handful of water. If you keep your hand open, the water can rest there naturally. But if you squeeze your fist tightly, the water slips through your fingers. The tighter your grip, the more difficult it becomes to hold. Life often works in a similar way. The more desperately you cling to an outcome, the more tension you create around it. That tension affects your thoughts, emotions, and actions. Many people do not realize how much energy they spend checking for evidence. They constantly ask themselves whether their desire is getting closer. They look for signs in every circumstance. They measure their progress every day. They seek reassurance from friends, social media, and external conditions. Yet every time they do this, they reinforce a hidden message. I do not believe it is mine yet. This is important to understand because your dominant state influences how you experience life. When you are obsessed with results, your attention remains fixed on what is missing. You keep noticing the gap between where you are and where you want to be. The more you focus on the gap, the larger it appears. Think of someone waiting anxiously for a phone call. Every few minutes they check their phone. They wonder why it has not rung. They become frustrated by the silence. Time seems to move slowly because their attention is fixed on waiting. Contrast this with someone who is confident the call will come. They continue living their life. They focus on other activities. They trust the process. Ironically, this relaxed person often experiences far less stress because they are not emotionally trapped by the outcome. The same principle applies to every area of life. When you become attached to a specific result, you unknowingly place your happiness in the future. You tell yourself that peace, joy, or fulfillment can only arrive when circumstances change. As a result, you spend the present moment feeling incomplete. You postpone your well-being until some future event occurs. But there is another way. Instead of holding on with fear, you can hold your desire with confidence. Instead of constantly checking for proof, you can trust what you have already accepted within yourself. Instead of obsessing over when it will happen, you can focus on becoming the person who already feels secure, fulfilled, and at peace. This shift changes everything. When resistance dissolves, your mind becomes clearer. You make better decisions. You recognize opportunities more easily. You stop reacting from desperation and begin acting from confidence. Life feels lighter because you are no longer carrying the heavy burden of constant worry. The paradox is that many of the things people want most begin moving more naturally when they stop forcing them. Not because they stopped caring, but because they stopped creating resistance through fear. They released the emotional struggle surrounding the desire and allowed themselves to trust. So if there is something in your life that feels stuck, ask yourself an honest question. Am I holding this desire with faith, or am I holding it with fear? If the answer is fear, perhaps it is time to loosen your grip. Keep the vision, keep the dream, keep the desire, but release the anxiety, release the obsession, release the need to control every detail. Because desire inspires movement, but fear creates resistance. And often, the moment you stop gripping so tightly is the moment life finally has room to move. That is why holding on creates resistance, and why true power begins when trust becomes greater than fear. One of the most important distinctions a person can learn is the difference between letting go of the need and letting go of the desire. Many people hear the phrase, let go, and immediately assume it means giving up. They believe it means abandoning their dreams, lowering their expectations, or pretending they no longer care. Because of this misunderstanding, they resist the very thing that could bring them peace. They think that if they stop needing something, they will also stop wanting it. But these are two very different things. A desire is natural. It is the impulse toward growth, expansion, and greater expression. Every achievement, every invention, every meaningful relationship, and every personal transformation begins with a desire. Desire is not the problem. The problem begins when the desire turns into a need. A desire says, I would love to experience this. A need says, I cannot be happy until this happens. A desire feels light and inspiring. A need feels heavy and urgent. The moment you convince yourself that your happiness depends on a specific outcome, you surrender your peace. You begin living in a state of waiting. You tell yourself that fulfillment exists somewhere in the future and that you must reach it before you can finally relax. As a result, your emotional well-being becomes controlled by circumstances outside of you. Think about how many people spend years chasing something they believe will complete them. They think a relationship will make them whole. They think money will make them secure. They think success will make them worthy. They place enormous emotional weight on a future event, believing it holds the key to their happiness. Yet, even when they achieve what they wanted, the sense of completion is often temporary because they never addressed the deeper issue. They made their peace conditional. Letting go of the need means reclaiming that peace. It means deciding that your joy, confidence, and sense of worth are not dependent on any single outcome. It means understanding that you can still desire something deeply while remaining emotionally free. In fact, this freedom often strengthens your ability to pursue your goals because you are no longer acting from fear. Imagine two people seeking the same opportunity. One feels desperate. They believe their entire future depends on it. Every delay feels painful. Every obstacle feels threatening. Their emotions rise and fall with every piece of news. The other person also wants the opportunity, but they are not emotionally dependent on it. They believe good things can come into their life in many ways. They remain confident regardless of temporary setbacks. Which person is likely to experience more peace, clarity, and resilience? The answer is obvious. The second person has let go of the need while keeping the desire. This state creates a remarkable shift in energy. When you no longer need something to validate you, you stop chasing it from a place of lack. You stop sending the message that you are incomplete without it. Instead, you begin approaching life from a feeling of wholeness. This is where real power emerges. A person who feels complete within themselves is not controlled by fear. They do not panic when things take time. They do not lose themselves in worry. They trust that what is meant for them can arrive without constant struggle. Their confidence comes from within, not from external conditions. This does not mean they stop taking action. It does not mean they become passive. On the contrary, they often take better action because it is no longer driven by desperation. They make decisions from clarity rather than pressure. They recognize opportunities more easily because their vision is not clouded by anxiety. One of the greatest signs that you have let go of the need is that you can think about your desire without feeling tension. You can imagine it, appreciate it, and move toward it without fear. You trust the process. You trust yourself. You trust that your life is not dependent on one specific outcome unfolding exactly as planned. There is freedom in this state. You are free to dream without attachment, free to hope without fear, free to act without pressure, free to desire without dependence. And paradoxically, it is often from this place of freedom that the things you want begin appearing more naturally. Not because you stopped wanting them, but because you stopped needing them to complete you. So if there is something you deeply desire today, do not suppress that desire. Do not pretend it does not matter. Embrace it, honor it, let it inspire you. But release the belief that your happiness must wait until it arrives. Release the idea that your worth depends upon it. Release the need. Keep the vision. Keep the dream. Keep the desire. And allow yourself to feel whole right now. Because the moment you stop needing something to complete you is often the moment you become truly available to receive it. One of the greatest challenges on any journey of transformation is learning to trust the state you have accepted within yourself, even when the outer world has not yet caught up. Most people place their faith in appearances. They believe what they can see, touch, and measure. If circumstances look favorable, they feel confident. If circumstances seem unfavorable, they begin to doubt. Their emotional state rises and falls according to external conditions. As a result, They spend much of their lives reacting rather than creating. But there is a deeper principle at work. Every visible result begins as an invisible assumption. Before something becomes part of your experience, it often becomes part of your consciousness. The challenge is that there is usually a period between accepting a new state internally and seeing evidence of it externally. During that period, trust becomes essential. Imagine planting a seed in fertile soil. The moment the seed is planted, a process begins. Yet if you look at the ground the next day, you may see no visible change. If you judged only by appearances, you might conclude that nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, roots are forming. Growth is occurring. Life is organizing itself in ways your eyes cannot yet perceive. The same principle applies to the assumptions you accept within yourself. When you choose a new state, whether it is abundance, confidence, love, success, peace, or fulfillment, you are planting a seed in consciousness. The moment you genuinely accept that state, something begins to shift. The problem is that many people immediately start digging up the seed with doubt. They constantly check for evidence. They question whether it is working. They become discouraged when results do not appear instantly. In doing so, they interrupt their own sense of certainty. Trust means refusing to let temporary appearances determine your inner state. It means remaining faithful to what you have accepted, even when visible proof is absent. It means understanding that reality often reflects a state after that state has become natural within you. Most people are willing to believe after they see results. Trust asks something different. It asks you to remain confident before the evidence arrives. Not because you are ignoring reality, but because you understand that reality is not always showing the full picture. Think about how often people seek reassurance. They want signs that things are working. They want confirmation that their efforts are paying off. They want guarantees that everything will turn out exactly as they hope. Yet the constant need for reassurance usually reveals a lack of trust. It suggests that confidence is being placed in circumstances rather than in the state itself. When you truly trust, you stop seeking constant confirmation. You no longer need daily proof. You no longer measure your progress every hour. You no longer allow every challenge to shake your confidence. Instead, you remain anchored in the identity you have chosen. For example, if you have accepted the state of abundance, you do not immediately abandon it because a temporary financial challenge appears. If you have accepted the state of love, you do not reject it because a relationship issue arises. If you have accepted the state of success, you do not surrender it because progress seems slower than expected. You remain faithful. You continue thinking, feeling, and acting from that state. This kind of trust creates emotional stability. It prevents you from being pulled in different directions by every external event. It allows you to maintain peace even during uncertainty. It frees you from the exhausting cycle of hope and disappointment. One of the most beautiful aspects of trust is that it allows life to unfold naturally. When you stop forcing outcomes, you become more receptive. You notice opportunities you might have overlooked. You make decisions with greater clarity. You become less reactive and more centered. Your actions begin flowing from confidence rather than fear. Trust is not passive. Trust is active certainty. It is the quiet conviction that what you have accepted within yourself is real, regardless of current appearances. It is the willingness to continue believing when circumstances have not yet provided confirmation. It is the decision to remain aligned with your chosen state instead of constantly returning to doubt. As you move through life, remember that every transformation requires a period of unseen development. Just because you cannot yet see the full result does not mean nothing is happening. Just because circumstances have not changed does not mean progress has stopped. The seed is still growing. The roots are still forming. The process is still unfolding. Your role is not to constantly dig up the seed in search of proof. Your role is to nurture it with trust. So if you have accepted a new vision for your life, remain faithful to it. Trust the state you have chosen. Trust the assumptions you have embraced. Trust the inner transformation taking place. And trust that what becomes natural within you has a way of eventually expressing itself without. Because miracles often begin the moment you stop demanding evidence and start trusting the reality you have already accepted in consciousness. One of the greatest secrets to inner transformation is learning to feel fulfilled before the visible evidence appears. This idea seems completely backward to the logical mind. Most people have been taught that fulfillment comes after success, after wealth, after love, after achievement. They believe that circumstances must change first and that their emotions will naturally follow. In other words, they wait for the outer world to give them permission to feel complete. But this way of living keeps fulfillment forever in the future. It creates a cycle where happiness is always dependent on the next event, the next opportunity, the next accomplishment. The mind constantly says, when this happens, then I will feel peace. When that arrives, then I will feel secure. When I achieve this goal, then I will finally be happy. The problem is that the future never truly arrives in the way we imagine. The moment one goal is achieved, another often takes its place. The mind continues searching for the next reason to postpone fulfillment. As a result, many people spend years chasing a feeling that they never allow themselves to experience in the present. True transformation begins when you reverse this pattern. Instead of waiting for fulfillment, you choose fulfillment. Instead of waiting for confidence, you embody confidence. Instead of waiting for gratitude, you practice gratitude. Instead of waiting for peace, you enter a state of peace now. This does not mean pretending that your desires do not matter. It does not mean denying your ambitions or ignoring your goals. It means understanding that the emotional state you seek is available before the physical evidence appears. The feelings you expect your future success to bring can begin to live within you today. Think about a person who desires financial abundance. Most people assume they will feel secure once they have enough money. Until then, they remain worried and fearful. But if security is always postponed until circumstances improve, then fear becomes the dominant state. The individual continues living from lack even while trying to create abundance. Now imagine someone who begins cultivating a feeling of security before their financial situation changes. They trust themselves. They appreciate what they already have. They focus on opportunities rather than limitations. Their inner state is no longer dependent on immediate evidence. They are embodying the feeling first. The same principle applies to every area of life. A person seeking love can begin feeling worthy and valued now. A person seeking success can begin feeling confident now. A person seeking freedom can begin feeling grateful now. The feeling does not have to wait for the result. In fact, the feeling often comes first. This is why fulfillment is so powerful. It shifts your identity. Instead of identifying as someone who lacks, you begin identifying as someone who already possesses the essence of what they desire. You stop seeing yourself as incomplete. You stop viewing your life as something that will begin later. You start living from a state of inner richness. One of the reasons this matters so much is because your state influences your perception. When you feel fulfilled, you notice opportunities differently. You respond to challenges differently. You carry yourself differently. Your decisions become less driven by fear and more guided by confidence. People often underestimate the effect of emotional states. They assume emotions are merely reactions to life. Yet emotions also shape how life is experienced. A fearful mind sees obstacles everywhere. A grateful mind notices possibilities. An anxious mind expects problems. A fulfilled mind expects good things. This shift changes the quality of your entire experience. Imagine waking up each morning already feeling thankful. Imagine moving through the day with quiet confidence. Imagine no longer measuring your worth by external achievements. Imagine enjoying the journey instead of constantly postponing happiness until the destination. That is the power of fulfillment. It is not something you earn after life improves. It is something you choose before life improves. The moment you begin living from fulfillment, you release a tremendous amount of pressure. You no longer need every circumstance to go perfectly. You no longer panic when results take time. You no longer feel emotionally dependent on outcomes. Instead, you become anchored in a deeper sense of completeness. You know who you are regardless of temporary appearances. You know your value regardless of external recognition. You know your peace regardless of present conditions. This inner stability is transformative. It allows you to move forward without desperation. It allows you to dream without fear. It allows you to trust without constant reassurance. So if there is something you desire today, stop asking yourself when it will arrive and start asking yourself a different question. How would I feel if it were already here? Then allow yourself to experience that feeling now. Feel the gratitude. Feel the relief. Feel the confidence. Feel the joy. Let those emotions become familiar. Let them become natural. Let them become part of who you are. Because when you become fulfilled before it appears, you stop living in pursuit of completion and begin living from completion itself. And that is often the moment when the outer world begins reflecting the change that has already taken place within. One of the greatest limitations people place upon themselves is the belief that they must know exactly how their desires will come to pass. They create detailed plans, specific expectations, and rigid timelines. They decide in advance who will help them, where opportunities will come from, and what path life should take. While there is nothing wrong with having goals and intentions, problems arise when people become so attached to a particular method that they close themselves off to every other possibility. Life is often far more creative than the human mind. What you seek may arrive through a door you never expected to open. The opportunity you have been waiting for may come through a conversation you almost ignored. The solution to a long-standing problem may appear from a completely unexpected source. The relationship you desire may develop in a way you never planned. Yet many people miss these possibilities because they are too focused on a single route. They become attached not only to the desire itself, but also to the way they think it must happen. This attachment creates unnecessary resistance. Imagine ordering a package and then insisting that it must arrive in a specific vehicle, driven by a specific person using a specific road. The important thing is not the method of delivery. The important thing is receiving the package. Yet this is exactly what many people do with their dreams. They spend so much time controlling the how that they lose sight of the desired outcome. One of the most powerful forms of trust is allowing life to handle the details. This does not mean becoming passive or careless. It does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means recognizing that your perspective is limited. There are opportunities, connections, and possibilities beyond what you can currently see. Life has access to pathways that your conscious mind has not yet imagined. Think about some of the most meaningful events in your life. How many of them happened exactly as you planned? Often, the most important moments arrived unexpectedly. A chance encounter changed your direction. An unforeseen opportunity opened a new chapter. A setback led to growth you never anticipated. A delay protected you from something that was not right for you. Looking back, many people realized that life was working in ways they could not understand at the time. This realization teaches an important lesson. Not knowing the path does not mean there is no path. When you become overly attached to a